Okay, we're going to move into the main portion of the evening, and what we got in mind tonight is we're going to do a little tribute to our past president, Jim Russell. And so what we got in mind, we got some special guests here tonight who knew Jim very well and worked with Jim. And so I've asked a group of people to come, and it might be a fond memory, it might be a funny story. So we're going to hear what people have to say here tonight.
Jim was a friend of anybody and everybody. He always had a smile on his face. He was friends with the doorman at the Capitol, with the secretaries, with the cooks, all the way up to the Speaker of the House or even the governor. He knew everybody and he treated everybody the same. He was a mentor of mine, and he taught me and a lot of other people how to be a better person.
The greatest thing that happened to Jim, in my opinion, during that time was to marry a beautiful dairyman's daughter from Hannibal, Missouri. The greatest thing that ever happened to Jim. But we also hunted together. If you've been turkey hunting, we know what you have to be quiet, you have to be well camouflaged, and still. Jim was not one of those people that had any of those traits. But we called in a flock of turkeys, and Jim shot one, and then he shot another one, and then he shot a third. I said, "Yeah, the limit's one." I was on the Conservation Commission at that time. And I thought, boy, if I get caught, I'll never, ever let this down. So I said, "Jim, you know what you shouldn't do?" Well, he said, "I didn't get one last year, I didn't get one the year before, so I'm making up for it." Anyway, lots of other stories hunting. But he was my best friend for 60 years, and he left a big, huge footprint here in Missouri for agriculture.
Jim did leave quite a legacy with Moag, and he'd done so much for the industry and for agriculture. Like I say, you couldn't find anybody else that was more engaged in agriculture and driving agriculture forward in the state of Missouri. Jim Russell was quite a guy. He always had a sense of humor. He always had that sparkle that intrigued everybody to get to know Jim a little bit better, I think. Of course, having served in the legislature previously, he knew how tough things were. But Jim, he was always there. He was always pushing for things to make Missouri agriculture better.
Jim's a remarkable guy. I think of concrete when I think of him, because before I came to Mizzou to be the dean and all, and they said, "You're going to hook up with two guys, Moeller and Russell." These guys have laid more concrete on the Mizzou campus than the local contractors. And indeed they did, and Lowell's already mentioned that to you. Eccles Hall, they helped create and get there. Moag Industries was the early contributor to the Bond Life Sciences Center, which you see when you go on campus. Tremendous facility, and indeed, concrete. I would say without question, Jim's efforts has touched thousands of young lives who've gone on to be very productive in agriculture and the greater industry. That to me is a legacy that should really be remembered. It's what he's touched.
Jim is my all-time favorite honest politician. Jim was a Democrat, but Jim was what it needed to be for the better of the country. He could be a good Democrat, he could be a good Republican, and what was good for the taxpayers of Missouri is what Jim was for. And you don't see that in today's world. With Jim, the cup was always half full. It never was half empty. He's seen positive in everything, and he could work through the most difficult situations because of his attitude.
Barbecue was one of his passions, and I don't know, at least a couple, 3 times a year, he'd have a group of us Aggies down to the house there for barbecue, and some of the best ribs you'd ever want to eat. And whenever he set the date, it was one of those things you change your calendar to make sure you were going to be there, because it was that good of a deal. and you had a chance to interact with Jim, and the folks that he brought together was always just the kind of caliber of people that he was proud to be associated with. So one of the sayings Jim always used to say, that I may not get quite right, Steve, but he said, friends may come and friends may go, but enemies accumulate. And I think Jim was right on that. The group of folks here today, though, and I think I'm proud to call Jim a friend. I certainly am. And I think he probably accumulated a lot of friends across this great country, not only here in Missouri, but everywhere he went. So
every once in a while in life you get lucky. And Missouri Agriculture, and Missouri Agribusiness just got lucky when we were able to get together with Jim Russell, because he had a passion for agriculture, he understood agriculture, he was a smart man, he had boundless energy. And we didn't have to say anything, but Jim just represented us in Jeff City, and he did the rest.
I just remember going up and down the halls of the Capitol with Jim when we were working on different issues, and as has been mentioned before, he knew everybody's name and spoke to them by name, and everybody knew his name in every nook and cranny of the Capitol, and it didn't matter what party they were with to him at all. What he was interested in is the issues that he was representing, and Jim had a way of putting together a little short snippet soundbite, I thought, of whatever issue he was promoting at the time, and it was something that was memorable, would condense a big issue to a real small soundbite that was memorable and important that people would remember, and I think that's a trait that's really neat and served him well.
I'm a trustee on the Jim Russell Foundation. It's a pretty simple job, really. We have the great opportunity of going through scholarship applications once a year and choosing some worthy young people to get the Jim Russell Foundation scholarship. You know, going through some of these applications, he would be just really proud that his name is associated with these young people, because there are just a lot of really positive things for the future of agriculture.
I learned at a very young age that as a child on a farm, as many of you probably experienced, it often doesn't matter one bit. If you enjoy the work, you're still going to do it. And so I learned to love it at a very young age, and that passion brought me ultimately here to this stage today, and I'm so thankful for people like Jim Russell and the people of MOAG, Jim Russell Foundation and family, for all that they do for the agriculture industry and for each of you as well. So thank you.
So I'm a recipient of one of the Jim Russell Foundation scholarships. I'm a senior at the University of Missouri in Columbia. This legacy of leadership and insight in the agriculture industry. I know we have the former generation that you've heard from, and now this investment in the next generation of agriculture, especially here in Missouri. It's an exciting time to be in agriculture. Couldn't be a better time, and I'm really proud to carry on that Jim Russell legacy.
When I got this call from Steve, it was a real pleasure. I knew Jim since '83. My first impression of him was very positive, and from a personal standpoint, Jim was a role model for me, a father figure, somebody that was a mentor. Jim took MOAG to a level that, Steve, he set you a hell of a foundation.
In any situation, any scenario, class would be how I describe Mr. Jim Russell. And the organization he built, MOAG, to be able to step in, I never have and I never claim, I never will fill Jim Russell's shoes. That's not possible. I'm just taking the position that he used to have here in MOAG. But to step into that, and I hope you guys knew that was interviewing me, but I was truly sincere that to have to step into this position here that Jim was retiring from was truly something I wanted to do. Thank you very much.
It's an honor.
Okay, let's give the group a hand.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Steve and MOAG, for this wonderful evening, and all the great many kind and generous things that were said about Jim tonight. I think most of them were true. He was a wonderful man. We all miss him tremendously, and I think, Robert, maybe your conclusion tonight was probably the most fitting, that we all are better people because Jim has been in our lives. And Kim might want to add a few things.
Really, my father had a difficult time the last few years of his life, and my sister and my brother and myself really want to thank Mary and for all those friends that were there for him during that time.
Thank you very much, and have a very Merry Christmas and safe travels home.